You have to hit gallery.
So yeah, we have gallery view by taking your cursor up to the top right-hand corner and choosing which view. Do you want to have a speaker view and just look at the speaker, or just look at a few people, or look at everybody? And then, because part of this meeting is a social, it's so that all of us can meet all the other Monarch nuts, I mean enthusiasts, all over the country and the other country, and we bring countries together and we can have a lot of fun. So if you scroll through the pages, you can see all 6 pages of people that are here. And we are broadcasting today from snowy Toronto, Canada, where it's about 10 below in our system of Celsius. And we are under lockdown. So we are home and we are wearing masks. Oh my God, thank goodness I don't have to wear one all day long. This is the 5th in our series of Meet the Authors, and I'm extremely excited about this one in particular, because it's been a long time since I've seen Ba Rea.
Memorable.
9 years since that memorable Monarch Biology and Conservation meeting in Minneapolis, a wonderful city where milkweed grows everywhere. And do you know what happens when we're on this machine meeting people is we meet them in the most superficial way and we don't really get to know them. Well, in the last couple of days, I've gotten to learn more about Ba Rea. You're going to learn it today, and you're going to be absolutely fascinated with her life. And the reason I invited her is because I am so enthralled with her book that I think every Monarch enthusiast must. Oh, you just love Dawn. It's called Monarch Milkweeds and More. And one of the reasons I tell everybody to have it is because they're going to go into the milkweed patch and occasionally they're not going to find a caterpillar. And I don't want them to be disappointed. So why not learn about all the other bugs that are there? And then we don't have to decide what are good bugs and bad bugs. And they have hi Kylie with the picture. They have fascinating life stories, just like the Monarch. And the more you know, the happier you are. So whoever you take there, you can say, oh, look at this. This is an aphid. Oh, now they're very impressed. No, it's an oleander aphid. And it reproduces without a male. Okay, now once you know these things, now you're an authority. You've read some of the things in this book. Now you're an authority. Everybody thinks you're really, really genius. And lucky us, we get to learn about some of the other projects that Ba has created, including this one, which I ordered 9 years ago and haven't really looked at since now. Since then. It's called Learning from Monarchs, and I want to talk a little bit more about this. But when I published my book in 2012, I decided at that time I was going to go into continuous learning, so that whatever anybody asked me, I was going to know. So I bought some books, all different kinds of books and things. And when I opened my package from Ba, there was more in it than I had ordered. Now, why was that? Ba had a health challenge then. She was worried that she might not be able to teach. She sent me extra materials and asked me if I would accept the baton and teach. I hardly knew her. I was extremely moved by this, and it has sat on me all of these years that it's my job to teach. That little note, those few words, and this is how she influenced me and how we can influence others to become part of what we want them to become. So I'm not going to spend the entire time talking, but just a little bit more. I am going to introduce Ba, the little bio first. And then what's going to happen is she's going to, barring any technical difficulties, show us some slides of her life. Here we go. All of her life, Ba Rea has been passionate about the natural world, enjoying, investigating, learning, and sharing what she discovers. These days, she lives in the woods in West Virginia, the most beautiful place in the whole world, as she describes it. Ba has researched, drawn, photographed, and written about many different plants, animals, and natural phenomena. She has worked with a wide variety of organizations, including the Audubon Society, Monarchs in the Classroom, and Pittsburgh Children's Museum. Oh, I know what to do. Mute all.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And then Ba at some point will unmute. Ba's favorite creatures are monarch butterflies, but praying mantids, toads, American eels, puffins, and whales are all close contenders. Ba has been raising and releasing monarchs since 1970. She has been introducing monarchs to school children and teachers since 1986. Until 2013, Ba taught a class, Monarch Butterflies in Your Classroom Here and Now, for teachers interested in using monarchs in the classroom. Ba has her Bachelor of Science in 1979 in an individual plan of study, which combined studies in illustration, educational psychology, and natural history. Then she went on to get her master's in children's and adolescent writing in 2001. So one of the things that's absolutely fabulous about Ba's books is she's like a medical illustrator. Her drawings are unbelievable. So here's a sample. Well, these are the works she's published. And, I'm only familiar with a few of them, and I was terribly impressed. Okay, she's either authored or co-authored. There Have Always Been Puffins, A Whale's Tale from the Supper Sea, My Monarch Investigation, Milkweed, Monarchs, and More, A Field Guide to the Invertebrate Community in the Milkweed Patch, and Monarch, Come Play With Me, and Learning from Monarchs. So I showed you two of them. This is Learning from Monarchs, the Spanish version. And without further ado, take it away, Ba.
All right, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Am I here?
Yes.
All right. All I see is Carol. Are we recording?
We are recording. Oh, I want to say one other thing. If you cursor down to participants, you can pass notes during class. Okay, there are no rules in this class. If you see somebody you want to talk to, you can send them a private message, or you can send little chats to the entire group. I see some of you have started already, and you can throw in reactions. So the bottom toolbar, if you scroll to the right-hand side, you see reactions, and you can put up your hand like I just did. You can have a thumbs up if you want to, just for fun. And that's it. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. I have been so excited about doing this, and I have spent so much time getting ready for it that now I haven't practiced it. So your first time through, guys. I'm sorry. Anyhow, I wanted to. I have a bunch of things here. Let's see. I'm gonna share a screen. I think there it is. Do you see it?
You'll lose him.
Woo!
There you go.
Okay, so I'm going to view slideshow. There you go. All right. So basically, monarchs crawled into my life about 50 years ago, and that's made all the difference. I was a young artist. My father wanted me to be a doctor, but it wasn't going to happen. I compromised and I went to school for medical art at the University of Illinois. But mostly I was interested in drawing and understanding things by drawing. And the more I drew things, the better I understood what I was looking at. And I was working on my brother-in-law's farm, and he pointed at some plants and he said, "Those are milkweed." Well, I knew milkweed pods. And I looked at that flower and I said, "How does that work?" Doesn't make any kind of sense to me at all. And so I started bringing stems of milkweed with the flowers on them in order to draw them, to try to understand how they got to be milkweed pods. I didn't know anything about monarchs at that point, but very soon I had monarchs crawling all over my room. Little caterpillars here and little caterpillars there. And over time, they became, they hung in jay, they became chrysalids, and they became butterflies. I was hooked. Every summer from then on, I had monarchs in my house. I went out and found them. At that point, I wasn't as much into the science as I was into it. Was just, it spoke to my life. It talked about what was happening to me. I've got a picture of my jacket down here that I made during that period of time. That was my way of expressing how incredible this all was. And every summer, I spent time in the milkweed patch. I went through and got my visual literacy degree, as Carol told you about, in illustration, educational psychology, and natural history, because I wanted to use illustrations to explain science. And I got my first job on a CETA grant for Anita Purvis Nature Center, and got to work with all of the natural history surveys, the meteorological survey and whatnot on the university campus, making exhibits and things for Anita Purvis Nature Center. I did a lot of illustration, mostly for natural history causes, for Audubons and things like that, until I had kids. And then I was doing programs in schools, and I started tagging. I started tagging with some people that I met at the Maine Audubon Society. And I got more and more and more involved in the science. I did school programs all of the time, and I was doing all kinds of illustration things. Let's see, I should have practiced this more. In 1997, 1999, my youngest sister came to me, and I had been illustrating things. She'd been writing forever, and since she was 5 years old, I've been illustrating her books for her. And she came to me with this idea. She said, I'm going out on the boats in the Kenai Fjords in Alaska, and people are seeing puffins, and they want to have a book about puffins, but there's nothing out there on the western coast puffins. There's a couple things on the eastern coast puffins, but we've got great puffins, and I haven't got, so we got to write a book. I said, CJ, what are we going to write about? She said, we're going to write a book for all ages. And I said, okay, there isn't a publisher out there that I know will accept that. And she said, oh yeah, it's going to have 3 different lines of story and scientific information, and we got to do a band for little kids too. I said, okay. She said, and you're going to publish it. And I said, oh, come on, CJ, you've got to be kidding me. Do you know what a publisher does? They have an editorial staff. They have a marketing staff. They know all of these things. I had been designing books for vanity presses, but it's not the same thing. And I've been doing illustrations forever. It's not the same thing. And she said, listen, if I sell 2,000 of these books before we go to finishing the project and publishing it, will you do it? I said, find some money. My dad gave her money. She went back to Alaska. She came back in 2 months with 2,000 books sold. That was the beginning of Ba Rea Publishing Group, and there have always been puffins. 2 years later, she came back and she wanted to do one about the whole ecosystem of the Kenai Fjords, and that was the beginning of The Whale's Tale from the Supper Sea. These 2 books got me into classrooms in a really big way. I was taking the books and talking to the kids about the puffins and the whales. I was also telling them that they could write their own books, and I was helping them set up writing books in their classrooms. I was spending a lot of time in classrooms. And so, naturally, I went back to school in teacher certification because I wanted to know what I needed to do in order to fit into the classroom and help teachers out the best that I could. I got excited about teaching. I thought maybe I would become a teacher. I don't have classroom discipline, so I really couldn't pull that off. And as I went on to do my master's, I switched over to doing a master's in writing. The master's in writing was for children and adolescents, and my focus was on natural history writing. At that point, my problem with natural history writing was that it wasn't really taken seriously by the publishing groups. And a lot of times they published books for kids that were Wrong. They weren't going and having them properly vetted. There was misinformation all over the place. And so my thesis was all about writing a book to the age group of the child with what the child is interested in, and separating it. I separated out preschool through second grade, and then second grade through seventh grade. And I wrote and illustrated 4 books for my thesis. One of them was Monarch Come Play With Me. And as an extra bonus, part of the money that I borrowed to go back to school, I had left over near the end. And so I went to Mexico, because for the older book, the older Monarch book, I was talking about the monarchs coming down to Mexico. It was more about the migration. And I figured I needed to do research. And so I went, this picture up here in the corner is at La Chinqua on that trip. Before I left, I called together a whole lot of the teachers that I had been teaching about monarchs, and talked to them about, what we could do with monarchs and how we could make it more accessible for other teachers in the community. And at that meeting, I met a woman named Leah Spinks, who was still is, an absolutely amazing 4th grade science teacher. And she said, we need to do a book. And that's how my Monarch Investigation came to be. My Monarch Investigation was a journal that helped kids learn how to do science using the monarch butterfly. They learned how to do observations. They learned how to look at the habitat. There's a section on what scientists actually do. They did data collection, and they journaled, and they, at the very end, through the curriculum that we put with this, they would create a hypothesis, an experiment. They would report the results, and they would report their conclusions. It was my opinion that you couldn't do anything like this on your own, that you had to go to the scientists who are really studying this stuff and who really knew what was going. And so I got a hold of both Chip Taylor and Karen Oberhauser to proof my copies on this, which was a really good thing to do, because I made some fascinating mistakes. I've been raising monarchs and watching them for a long time, but you learn a little bit here, you learn a little bit there, and you make some really kind of funny conclusions. I was going through learning about, I was trying to talk about when the monarch butterfly closes and that red stuff drips out of it. And at that point, there was no internet, there was none of this stuff. So you couldn't go online and just find it out. And I read that monarch, I assumed that the red stuff that came out was the same stuff they were pumping into their wings. That was my assumption, because of the, you pump up the wings and then some red stuff comes out. And I read that it was called meconium. Well, I knew what meconium was because I had meconium in my embryonic fluid when my son was born. So it's like, it's feces in the fluid. I thought, oh geez, maybe meconium means something about a chemical construction. And so in one of the parts of the journal, I had put in that they pump the meconium into their wings, and then they let what's left over go, and that's what the red stuff is. Chip wrote the most wonderful email back to me, explaining to me that in fact monarchs don't fly on wings of shit. They hold on to that to keep the pressure up so that they can push hemolymph, the blood, into the wings. It's stuff like that. That's why you always go to a scientist, because you make some choices in what you think is going on that isn't necessarily true. Anyhow, we did this, the My Monarch Investigation. It was used in a whole lot of schools throughout Western Pennsylvania. It was adopted in some places down in West Virginia. It was used all over the place. Karen pushed it a lot, and a lot of people got My Monarch Investigation. It's currently out of print, but it made the connection for me with Karen Oberhauser. And in 2002, actually probably 2001, Karen called me and said, well, I meet her at Penn State because she had a project she wanted to do. And of course I would meet Karen anywhere she wanted me to. And so I showed up, and she had, at that point, she was working with the Monarch Larva Monitoring Project. And she wanted to create a booklet. And since Bas Relief Publishing Group was there, Bas Relief could do it. She wanted to do a booklet that talked about what volunteers were going to see in the milkweed patch. photographs when they went in. And we talked about it. She had a National Science Foundation grant, and it had enough money to pay me for about 3 months worth of work and to pay for the printing and all of that sort of stuff. And we thought it through, and we were working on it, and we were short. We didn't have all of the photographs we needed. And so we went on Dplex and we asked if anybody out there had pictures, photographs that we could use. And we got a lot of good photographs, but this one guy, he sent us 13 photographs that we would die for. They were absolutely what we wanted. And we were offering people a book in exchange for their photographs. Well, for 13 photographs, you want 13 books? It just didn't seem like, so Karen called him up and she said, okay, we want all 13 photographs. What do you want? And he said, oh, I want to be an author. Well, scientists do this. They work on projects together, and it's important for them to be published. And Karen said, well, you can't be an author for 13 photographs. He said, oh, I can do so much more. And he did. The entire project changed. That was Mike Quinn. Mike Quinn became my go-to guy. The project went from being a 3-month project to being a 1.5-year project. I spent 2 summers in the milkweed patch. And anytime I found anything, I'd call Mike Quinn, and he would help me find the scientist who studied that, the person who knew the most about it. I spent a great deal of time looking at field guides and trying to figure out how to make all of that sort of thing work. And I spent 2 summers crawling around milkweed patches. You don't get better than that. That was just really good. Taking photographs and working on putting this whole thing together. There were all kinds of different creatures that we talked to. I'm showing you just a few of them here. The jumping spider. I had no idea a jumping spider could get a whole big caterpillar like that, but he did. The milkweed bugs, the large milkweed bug and the small milkweed bug. The large milkweed bug is just really an herbivore. He eats plants, but the small milkweed bug has evolved and can be a predator as well, and can eat monarch caterpillars. Taconid fly, a lot of you guys know the taconid fly. They lay their eggs on the caterpillar, and the larva grows inside the caterpillar. It comes out and then pupates. And then usually it comes out of the chrysalis. This is a picture of the chrysalis. And if you look carefully, you can see the little white string coming down out of the chrysalis. Tussock moth caterpillars. People would tell you that not that many things eat milkweed. They don't say that much anymore. Back then they said it all the time. Tussock moth caterpillars will completely skeletalize your milkweed if they get onto it. They'll eat and they'll eat and they'll eat. And they have a very different strategy than monarchs. Monarchs are solitary. You usually find the female will lay 1 egg at a time. Sometimes if there's not a lot of milkweed, they'll load the milkweed plant and there'll be a whole lot of eggs on it. But generally they're pretty much spaced out, and with the idea that it will take a predator a lot longer to find them. Well, they don't think about it, but that's how the strategy works. Tussock moth caterpillars, instead, you can see up at the top of at the top here, this is the egg case. And it's all covered with foots, and they come out and they stay together for a long time, for several instars. They stay all together like this, the little caterpillars, and even oh dear, my internet it's saying my internet is unstable. I'm sorry if you're having problems with it. This is the tussock moth caterpillars as they're getting bigger. But this was my most fantastic find. I found these guys. They're all huddled together underneath a webbing on my milkweed plant. And I called up Mike and I said, what are these? And he said, oh, those are plant hoppers. They don't eat milkweed. I said, I'm pretty sure they do, because it's a milkweed leaf and they've got threads up over the top of them and they're staying there. And he said, well, grow them up. Take the milkweed leaf inside, watch them and see what they grow into, and we'll keep looking around. And we got a number of people who were studying plant hoppers who said, oh no, plant hoppers have nothing to do with milkweed. But there they were, and they grew up, and these are the pictures of them. So we showed that the plant hoppers were actually living on the milkweed. What's interesting about this, when I worked with kids, I would tell them, you too could find something that nobody knew before, because if you're out there poking around in the milkweed, you might find something that nobody saw before. But the interesting thing about this is that several years later, my milkweed got phytoplasm, and that's a disease of the milkweed that the phytoplasm actually goes down into the sap, and it changes the way the milkweed grows. It gets what they call witch's broom. It grows out lots and lots of leaves and stems and stuff like that. And it spread these plant hoppers, which all of the experts told me back when I was doing this weren't there. Anyhow, Milkweed, Monarchs, and More was a really fun project. And it was used by all kinds. It didn't just stay with the volunteers on the Monarch Larva Monitoring Project. It moved on and on. In 2006, Karen Oberhauser called me again. At this point, I was pretty sure I shouldn't be a publisher. I mean, I didn't know how to promote these things. I didn't have time. I was drawing, I was writing, I was doing all these other things. But Karen called me and she said, "Oh, I've got a book that you've absolutely got to publish." And I said, "Karen, you got to be kidding me." And she sent this book, Milkweed Visitors, to me. This was written by a woman named Mary Holland. And she's an incredible photographer. And she's a naturalist. And the book was incredible. It had all of the pictures of everything, or of a lot of things that you saw on milkweed plants. And it was written at about a fourth grade age level. And so Karen and I worked with her, and we helped her just tweak it a little bit so that it fit into science standards, so that it would be good in the classroom, so that it would work out well with my curriculum. We send it out with a curriculum all the time after it was published. And when I took it to my printer, he said, "Hey, you know that Monarch Come Play With Me book that you wrote? If you bring it at the same time, I'll do it for half price." And that's how Monarch Come Play With Me actually ended up finally getting published. Originally, Monarch Come Play With Me was all drawings. But I had learned, as I was working on the whale's tail from the Upper Sea, how to superimpose photographs on my drawings and mix them in. And I wanted Monarch Come Play With Me to be one of those books that was like a field guide of the natural history of monarch butterflies for little kids. This is aimed at kindergarten through second grade learners. And so the book is all about, how is a monarch caterpillar like me? So for instance, when the caterpillar is shedding its skin like it is here, it talks about as it grows, it sheds its tight skin, and the little girl says, "Well, my t-shirt doesn't fit anymore, but my skin still fits." So we tied all of those things together, and that's Monarch Come Play With Me. It was a really fun project, and I was really happy to get it done, to get it published. Then in 2010, we were starting to get a lot of comments from classrooms, from teachers, who said that Milkweed, Monarchs, and More was a wonderful resource for the classroom, but the little small book, it wouldn't stay flat on the desk. The kids were getting frustrated because they'd go out in the field, they'd find the things, they'd come back in to write reports, and the book would close on them, and they wouldn't be able to get the reports written. Could we do an enlarged version? So we started looking around at how to go about doing this, and I discovered that that Amazon had a company called CreateSpace that you could create your own books in, and you could do them on print on demand. And so I said, why don't we do it as a print on demand book, and we can do it as an enlarged version, and that way we didn't have to put $16,000-$17,000 into doing a print run to have this book. We could actually do it up, and then as people wanted it, it would get printed. They're print on demand. And so we did this, and we advertised it, and we suddenly got all kinds of people writing back to us and saying, "Oh, please don't let the little one go out of print." Well, it was pretty close to out of print at that point. Anyhow, in the interim, I also did learning from, my slides are out of order. I should have practiced this more. Anyhow, after I realized that the print-on-demand books was going to work so well, I realized that I was doing an annual class through the Children's Museum, teaching teachers how to use monarchs in the classroom. And every year I would print out a notebook with a whole bunch of sheets of information, and I would do a PowerPoint for them, telling them everything they needed to know before I handed them eggs and first instar caterpillars and third and second instar caterpillars, and had them learn how to deal with these themselves. And it was frustrating because it was a lot of work to do the notebooks, and teachers fall asleep when you put them in the dark room and make them watch PowerPoints. It's just not cool. And so I created these two pieces for my classes. The Learning from Monarchs, a teacher's handbook, is all of the information that I had previously put in notebooks for the teachers. And it's also a print on demand, and it's also available all the time now. The Monarch Life Cycle cards were how I got rid of PowerPoint in my classroom. Every year when it was time for classes, or before it was time for classes, I would be out in the field. I would collect eggs in the wild so that my teachers would have monarchs to work with when I did my classes in August. And I would show up at a class of 25 students or so with enough eggs for each of them to have 2 or 3, with enough first instars, second instars, third instars, all that sort of things. And I had been doing a PowerPoint talking about, you got to be careful and not move it if it's already started to mold. Here's how you look for the head plate coming off, and this is how you look to see if it's staying still. And it's on all the cards. Instead of having to listen to me with a PowerPoint for an hour of how to deal with all of these different things, each group of 3 teachers, I'd hand a deck of these cards. And the cards are all in sequence, and they go through all of the things they needed to know and all the things that I wanted them to look for when they were looking at the monarchs and first and second and third instar eggs and that sort of stuff. And every single class, people would see the eggs hatching. They would see the monarchs molting, all of those things, and they did it all on their own. They could stand there and work through with the cards and see what was happening with the stock that they had in front of them and share it with the people that they were working with. And the cards, I never expected to sell those, but the teachers that I worked with started buying them, and then they got to be very popular. So those are also on my website and available. In 2011, we did a second edition of Milkweed, Monarchs, and More. The one that you're buying in the stores now is the second edition field guide, or the second edition enlarged version. And when I found the printer for that, Karen said, well, I've got a lot of Spanish speaking people who would really like to have Monarch come play with me. Is there any way we could do? Karen helping me along for a very long time. I worked with Carol Culler down in Eagle Pass, Texas, and she translated the entire book into Spanish. And we had a person down in Mexico who spoke that dialect go over it as well. And we created Monarchoven, who I don't speak Spanish, Juega Conmigo, at the same time. That was 2011. Oh, and this, oh shoot, I didn't mean to do that. How do I go back? Let's see, I'm screen sharing. Let's escape. Let's go back in. There we go. There we go. Okay, if you're interested in any of these books, and I'll talk to you about all of the books or anything, any questions you want to ask. If you're interested in these books, you can get them on my website, which is basrelief.org. And basrelief.org also has a variety of things. I've been working on programs all along up until about 2012, 2013. I had to stop because I can't walk anymore and I can't go out in the sunshine. So, but these things, this is a game card basically for people who are looking for monarchs. It takes you through checking off when you see a first instar or a second instar, when you see it at close, or when you see the monarchs, when you see a male, when you see a female, and that sort of thing. It was part of a game that we played in the county here with these kids. I got a request to do up a desert monarch card for the people in Arizona. this is a set of posters. This particular set that shows here is what's on my website. You to click on, but if you click on these individual posters, there's also one that doesn't say Monarch County on it that you can download. But these are all free. These are all available on my website, and I would be delighted for you to use them if you have any use for them. And then there were a couple of coloring pages for people for kids. There's one that's a very simplified one that's just the caterpillar, the egg and the hatch and the caterpillar and the pupa and then the adults, and the other one has a little bit more detail in it. But those are all available on my website. That wasn't what I wanted to do either. Okay. Oh, and these are the other places that you can find my books. I'm not a regular publisher, so I don't show up in all of the stores and things. I did that for a while. It was wearing and I couldn't get it. I really couldn't pull it off. But Monarch Watch Shop sells most of my books. They don't sell the little field guide of the Milkweed Monarchs and More, because Karen and I worked really hard to keep that price down. It's only $9 for the book, and you can't afford to sell books under $10 on the internet. So none of the internet stores have those. But Monarch Watch has most of my books. Monarch Joint Venture Shop has most of them. Acorn Naturalist has most of them. On Amazon, you can get all of them, I believe. You can't get the life cycle cards on Amazon, but you can get most of them. There are a lot of little shops. There's a lot of small distributors around the country that you can get my books at. I'm going to stop sharing here. And I'm going to say, okay, ask me some questions. She's been talking too long.
But that's just has blown me away. Who knew about all these exciting things and how eloquently you speak and with passion? And I'm just so excited to hear all of these things. And we do have a question. Alice, where's Alice? Do you want to ask your question? Well,
hello, yes.
Oh,
yes.
There's Alice.
Hello.
Oh, and hang on, hold your question for a second, Alice. If you have a question, it'll help me a lot if you put your hand up digitally. So that means you're going to scroll down to the bottom toolbar, go to reactions, and put your hand up. That'll help. Go ahead, Alice.
Bye. I love your book. And I've used it extensively to identify things because I teach about, I raise monarchs and teach children about them at our community town farm summer camps. So kids are good at finding things that I've not seen before, and I use your book. And I had been stumped by two things that I found on the milkweed. I took pictures and I have sent them to Carol's email just now, or before the talk. One was an egg mass that I didn't recognize, and then there was, I think it was called a brilliant bug. It looked like a little beetle, very small, brown, extremely round and shiny and almost iridescent. Anyway, I attached those pictures. But the second part of my question was, do you think you'll do a third edition? And if you do, I have a request that you show more pictures of different varieties of milkweed, because I'm on a quest to raise as many types as I can. I'm up to 17. And I'd love to be able to have more to identify by virtue of your field guides. So those are my, I don't know if Carol is able to share the two pictures that I sent.
Well,
so
I'm working on one of them.
Oh, good.
The chances aren't great, but during the next question, don't pay any attention to the person behind the screen playing with her screen share. But during the next question, I will attempt to bring up that shot, one of them anyway.
I will address the next edition. we put in like, I don't know, like twice as many milkweed varieties in the 2 second editions than we had in the very first edition. And there are so many things. Oh shoot. It's gonna ring and ring and ring because I can't turn it off. Anyhow, I don't know if there will be another edition. I am at this point trying desperately to get healthier. I am spending almost all of my time trying to understand autoimmune diseases and how to improve my health. If I actually get better, I've got lots of books I want to do. I've got, and another edition would make really good sense. I want to talk about phytoplasm in one of those. That's important because it's showing up. There are a bunch of things. If you're looking for milkweed, there's an authoritative guide on milkweeds. Dawn, do you remember what the name of that is? It's, oh shoot. It's escaping me at the moment. But there are some really good sources for lots and lots of different kinds of milkweeds. If I get better, y'all pray for me. And if I'm able to walk and go back out in the sunshine again, maybe. Yes. Alice.
Oh, thank you for doing that.
That was
busy
just
trying
me
to dig
crossing my fingers for you.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I thought you were waving.
Okay, great. Yes, if I'm away for a moment, then you can call upon the next person, who's Janet. Janet, go ahead. Janet, unmute. Oh, somehow we still can't hear you. Can anybody hear Janet? No. So Janet, your microphone isn't working. You're unmuted, but your mic isn't working. So you're going to work on getting your mic working while we take a question from Pam Varga.
Hi, first I want to say hi to Ba. Ba, I knew you back when you were in around Pennsylvania, around the Pittsburgh area.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember.
Oh, good. And I'm so sorry you're having health problems. That I'm working at a nature park now where we raise monarchs. We have a greenhouse and a butterfly nursery. We gave away over 2,000 eggs and caterpillars last year to kids and their parents who were interested in raising them. So I've become quite your disciple in trying to spread the word. One of the questions I get asked most often is what exactly happens inside the chrysalis when the caterpillar transforms into a butterfly? Does it turn to liquid? Does it digest it? What is going on?
What happens is the cat, if you were to cut open a third instar caterpillar, little guy, you would find wings.
Get out.
You would find it does most of the they're inside the caterpillar. There's something called imaginal cells, and those cells become the butterfly parts.
Okay.
When Karen and I were talking about it, she said, we think of it as being, kind of a magical thing that happens, but really what's going on is right after the egg is fertilized with a monarch butterfly, it's laid on a leaf. So the larva, the caterpillar, is an awful lot like what goes on for 9 months in the mom's belly. Okay, and if you get a very good picture of a chrysalis as it's forming, as it's coming out of the caterpillar, you'll be able to see the legs of the butterfly. You'll be able to see the antenna of the butterfly. I think what happened is early on, I got into some arguments with Lincoln Brower about this because he thought it was a perfectly reasonable thing to talk about. He said that the stuff inside the chrysalis was just like a soup. I said, no, a soup isn't alive. It doesn't have any form. And what happened was that, I was fooled by this too. For a long time, I thought it was like a soup. I thought it all dissolved and came back together again. But what happens is that with a chrysalis, if you drop the chrysalis when it's first forming, the exoskeleton isn't hardened yet, and it will break. It will just smush, and that's why people went along and thought, oh, well, it's nothing. It's just all this smush. It's because we don't have exoskeletons. We don't think about having a body like that. I mean, if you dropped a baby on the floor, it'd be bruised, but it wouldn't squish. but if you're dependent on your exoskeleton working, you gotta wait about 3 hours before the exoskeleton is hard again. So you'll see if you watch a Chrysalis when it first came through, and I think, oh, I can't remember your name now. There's a woman who's been on these Monarch talks before, who took incredible photographs of a Chrysalis as it was forming. I can't remember her name right now. Can you help me with that, Carol?
One of the authors?
No, she's not an author. She might have beautiful monarchs, or she might have she definitely has a Facebook side.
Holly.
Holly. Yes, she has the most awesome photographs of Chrysalis and you can see all of the parts of the butterfly.
Okay.
And that's the thing. And the reason that, I fought with Lincoln over that. I said, you got to quit telling people it's like a soup, because you get confused. I got confused. I was for a long time, I thought it was like a soup. It's not like a soup. It's just the exoskeleton is not hard yet. And
Right.
so if you drop it, all those parts, I mean, that's exoskeleton won't hold it, and it acts like a mush. But all of those changes, if you take a look at a fifth instar caterpillar and you look at how thick it is up at the head part, that's the wings and the legs and all that stuff that are almost all the way ready. By the time he's hanging in J, he's just rearranging his parts.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That really clears up a lot of misconceptions. And I do hope you get better soon. And I'm
gonna get better. I'm working on it.
We're all going to so pull and send so much energy that way, because there are so many more things that we need to see from Ba. Now, someone had a genius suggestion that Janet type her message into the sidebar.
Can you hear me now?
Hi, Janet.
Hi. I'm here now.
Okay, then.
Oh, sorry, I had to let my puppy go potty. Yes, I have been raising monarchs since 2017, and I have learned so much through Holly Hearns, Rob Wood, and Brad Grimm, and just have learned so much. And last year, unfortunately, we know it was a heck of a year. Someone had asked me to do a presentation, because every time I get around people, I start talking about monarchs. And so I ordered a stuffed monarch. It's a three-way. It looks like a caterpillar. Then you unzip one thing, and it's a pupa, and then you unzip the other, and it's a butterfly. So I'm trying to come up with things to teach kids. These are all going to be preschool kids, if I can do it this year. And I was wondering, would the cards be something that would really be good to show these children? These are all preschoolers, probably 4.
Janet, are you going to be there to teach it to them?
Yeah, if all goes well, if this COVID thing kind of settles down, and she invited me to her class or her school, which is an outdoor. It would be in an outdoor area that I would do this presentation. But again, I was supposed to go like in May, and then COVID hit, so we just decided to just wait.
Okay, we hear you. So after Ba answers the question, I'm going to ask Brenda to jump in.
Okay.
With her solution of how to teach monarch biology to preschoolers.
Well, that would be awesome.
And preschoolers of all ages. Are you up for that, Brenda? Okay, so turn
question first.
So unmute yourself, and Ba's going to handle that now. Brenda,
okay.
Janet, the life cycle cards are really designed for adults. They're very technical. Okay. I wanted the teachers to know everything, so that when the kids asked questions, they knew how to handle the question, because they knew the process that well. And they're just way too technical for preschool. The Monarch Come Play With Me book has each of those stages. It has embedded photographs. It really is very. That's the best I can do for my stuff. But there's probably other things too, and I think Brenda's about to tell you.
Okay. Thank you. And you will be in my prayers.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
a few things when I go to the little elementary schools around.
Yeah.
One thing that I do, and I built this costume. Rick is originally had it, and I said, "Hey, can I copy it from you?" And he said yes. So I have I teach them the anatomy of a butterfly. And
Okay.
so I went and well, I got all the pieces here, but they're in the other room. I went to the Dollar Tree and I bought these big clown glasses.
Yeah.
And then I bought stick-on eyes and I put them all over for multifaceted eyes.
Brenda, I'm going to stop you for a moment,
You
and
want
we're
me
going
go
to
get it?
take another question, and you're going to come
Sure.
back with some of it.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, so we're going to take, so if you have a question, be very direct with your question, ask the question, because we're running out of time, but we still want to hear your question. So Don, go ahead and ask your question.
Well, this will be more of a shout out to the gentleman in the lower right of my screen, Chris Goodwin, out there in Winnipeg, Manitoba. We met in 2002 on our trip to Mexico, and Chris has done great work with the Monarch Teacher Network out in Manitoba. So good to see you, Chris.
Chris, I'm so glad you came. I've seen your name in all kinds of things. Chris, unmute yourself so we can see who you are and say hi. Okay, then. Maybe we'll see Chris later, but it's always nice to do a little chat. And Bruce, go ahead. Thanks
very much. Yeah, I had a great chance to go down to Mexico and watch the overwintering monarchs, but Tom Immel, he's no longer with us, but he was the head curator at the University of Florida Natural History Museum. My question is, what about non-native species of milkweed? I understand that they're associated with deformities. What's the current thinking on this?
I can't tell you the current thinking because I'm not really following. I can tell you what I think. I think that it's one of those questions that's valid, but not that big a deal. I do not think that there is deformation with different non-natives. You're probably talking mostly about tropical milkweed. And
Yes,
tropical milkweed is a problem in the South.
we're in Florida.
It does not die back. And the problem with it is that OE, which is a protozoan parasite, that the monarch caterpillar ingests the spores. The protozoan lives in the caterpillar. It can't live in the butterfly. So when the butterfly is going into chrysalis, it goes into a spore phase. And in the spore phase, it stays in the chrysalis. As long as there aren't too many of them, the butterfly will survive, but the spores from the protozoan parasite will be in the scale of the adult butterfly. And when the butterfly lands on the milkweed and lays its eggs, the spores will end up on the milkweed leaves. If a caterpillar eats a bunch of spores, it'll die. If the caterpillar eats one, it'll pass the spores on to the next generation. And the problem with a milkweed like tropical milkweed is that if it doesn't die back, those spores can accumulate as more and more monarchs come. The milkweed itself is not causing deformities. The milkweed itself is milkweed, and the caterpillars are eating it and they're fine. The big problem and there's been a lot of question about whether or not monarchs are coming out of diapause because the tropical milkweed is there. I've listened to lots and lots of discussions. I'm not at this point in my life keeping up with the ongoing conversations. I look at them, I say, that's interesting, but I don't try to make a whole lot of sense with them. But my thought is, if you want to grow Chrysalis, cut it back 2 or 3 times a year. Just cut it to the ground and let it come back up again. The problem is that it's gonna keep naturalizing and going out elsewhere as long as it's able to make the flowers and make seed. The thing is that we're going through major climate change right now, and it's a good food source for the caterpillars. The problem is the OE spores, and there are a lot of people doing a lot of studies, and I have great respect for science, and I will defer to all of the people discussing all of the things with it. But it's not causing deformities in the monarchs.
Thank you.
It's not.
Yeah, and if you want to investigate that further, go to monarchwatch.org and you'll find a link to the Dplex mailing list. And you can join that list where all the scientists and people who are really into into this discuss these things on a regular basis. Now, my advice to you, if you do go on that list, is to watch for a month so that you see kind of how it goes. Like, you don't post pictures, and you have to see what the tone is before you ask a newbie question. But for the people who have already done all the research and still have questions, that's a good place to learn. And I see that we have Brenda back. So Brenda is going to tell us how to teach Monarch anatomy to preschoolers. Go ahead, Brenda.
So yeah, I give a class, I give them a little test by telling them they're not going to be graded. And so I tell them that butterflies have multifaceted eyes. And so they don't just see one of you, they see lots of you. And I teach them they smell with their antennas. And I teach them that they breathe with their spiracles. And I teach them that they fly around with their wings. And I teach them that they drink with their but they can't leave their proboscis like this because it would get stuck in the dirt. And oh my goodness, what a mess. So when they're done drinking, they roll it back up. So the kids really enjoy this. They want me to do it more than once, and I'll do it twice, and they'll go do it again. And I'm like, no, that's enough. But I also, when I go to the schools, I also like to bring eggs and caterpillars and Chrysalis and the adults, and I pass them around for the kids. But see something like this, they never forget that they smell with their antenna. They have
Janet, can everybody see that at the end of the antenna there are these two?
Oh, there's one other thing.
Two large noses.
They taste with their feet. So these are their tongues. They have 3 pair of feet and they taste with their feet.
There's tongues coming out of the feet.
Yeah. I teach them that they taste with their feet. And the kids
Oh my gosh.
this. Yeah, the kids never
That
forget
is
that.
awesome.
It's hard to see.
Wonderful.
And, Brenda, show us the nose at the end of the antenna.
Oh, the nose at the antenna?
We can't see it. Yeah,
Oh,
just
yes,
see,
yes.
that's a
I
big
see it,
plastic
yes.
nose.
Oh,
And I-
this one?
Yeah. Oh my
Well, this
gosh.
goes around your water pipes to keep them warm. And so I just, I stick this on and I tell them, well, they can't leave it hanging down because they get stuck and everything. So I tell them when they're done drinking, then I tell them they have to roll it back up. So, yeah, and the kids never forget this.
Now, there's
Oh
a
my
problem
God.
here. The problem is that Janet cannot remember all of this, okay?
Oh,
I
yes,
have a
I
little
can.
video.
Yes, you can.
But luckily,
Still remember.
Okay.
Brenda,
Yes.
we can, there's a YouTube video of you demonstrating it, right?
And yeah, there is. And when I did it,
Oh,
I don't know
great.
what I was thinking because I think I said they have 2 pair of legs or something. I'm like, no, they don't. They have 3. Why did I say that? But other than that, you get the whole thing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. That is
So yeah,
great.
it's on YouTube under Brenda Dezek. So yeah.
Okay. I do have a huge whiteboard, magnetic whiteboard,
Mhm.
and I ordered the magnetic thing, and it has each stage, and it's big enough to see from, because I don't know how close I'm going to be to these children,
Mhm.
but I was going to put that up as well. But I love your idea. That outfit that will definitely get their attention.
Oh, and they remember, you know, when you show them,
Yes.
they smell with their antenna and they, you know, taste with their feet. And, you know, I bought
Oh
the
my,
things and put felt tongue in it.
oh,
And I bought these
that
stuff
is,
that you wear, you know, that you wear, and I stuffed it full of them. And I got elastic band around so it goes around my neck. And, you know, you put all this on and kids never forget.
oh yeah, that is great. I love it.
Okay, well,
Thank you
so
very much, Brenda.
You're welcome.
That was wonderful. I have a
Yeah.
message for everybody. If you would like to check your sidebar, notice that we can talk more than an hour. And the reason we can talk more than an hour is because Zoom has an upgraded account that lets you talk for more than 40 minutes. And I would never want to cut one of these meetings off at 40 minutes. So I've paid in the neighborhood of almost $400 to Zoom to bring you these programs. And if anybody would like to throw in a couple of bucks because you think they're worthwhile and encourage me to do more of these, no pressure, but there's a link in the side. And if you click on it now, it doesn't mean you have to donate. It just means that you have it after the meeting in case you want it, and you can donate through PayPal a few bucks to cover my Zoom costs. And don't hesitate to leave whenever you want. We can't even tell whether you leave. If you get tired, you got to go to the bathroom, come back, whatever. We were happy to have you. And we are going to take one more question, and then we're going to kind of have an official closing. And after the official closing, we're going to try again to have a free-for-all, which in fact has worked before, and you guys can socialize with each other even more. So Irene, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I live in upstate New York, and my milkweed dies back every year. And I gather up all the old dried up stems and I carry them out into my woods. I got 38 acres and I've even got a giant sinkhole. So I've been putting all my weeds and stuff in the sinkhole to let it just gradually fill up the sinkhole. But I'm wondering, I suspect that I do have OE in my milkweed. I've had 1 or 2 butterflies that were definitely just all messed up and I had to euthanize them. So I'm wondering, should I in fact be burning the milkweed debris just for safety? Can you hear
Can't
me?
hear you, Bob. You got to unmute.
Where's
Trying to save you from the stupid telephone that keeps ringing. You probably don't need to do that. Just as long as you cut the milk back, you know, occasionally a butterfly is going to get up to you that has OE that survived it. And when you get unlucky, you know, a couple caterpillars get it. If they get a lot of spores early on, they'll be very sick. But you don't have to burn your milkweed as long as you cut it back. The spores aren't going to jump back up onto a new milkweed that's coming up. That's not going to happen.
okay, thank you.
Okay, then we have 2 more very exciting Zooms coming up that you'll want to register for. And one of them is with Lynn Rosenblatt, who wrote 20 years ago, Monarch Magic, and then the 20th anniversary edition of Monarch Magic, along with Monarch Buddies, several other books that you're going to hear about. And for the first time in one of our Zooms, we're actually going to have one of our authors singing. That's going to be Lynn. So you must come for that February 28th, and you can hear, Lynn, turn off your mute for a moment and give us a few bars.
Oh, you're gonna kill me.
Nice.
I haven't practiced. Well, the song I would sing is my One Big World song. So it's for peace and unity. So it's one big world for all of us to share. One big world needs our tender, loving care. I'll leave it at
Isn't
that.
that lovely?
Yay!
To tempt you to come in 2 weeks. And then after that, we will be having Brenda, who just did that fantastic demonstration. Brenda will be talking about her incredible book and photography, and that will be Brenda March 9th, I believe. And who knows what may happen after that. So right now, if you want to unmute yourself and get somebody else's attention, you can. And so this is our free-for-all social part. So go ahead. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't officially thank, I've just lost my screen somehow, but I didn't officially thank Ba. Ba, it has been so wonderful having you here today. I hope that you hang around a little bit more for the social, but I understand if you need to go. And this has exceeded the best that I could possibly have expected. Oh, and I wore a t-shirt in your honor. And this is my Milkweed community t-shirt that I wore for
Absolutely.
today.
Thank you very much. This has been great fun.
Good. Oh, I'm going to
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ba.
This is Janet.
off.
Thank you.
Excellent, Ba.
You
Thank
made
you.
my day, all of you.
Good.
Thank you for all you do for Monarch Watch.
And thank you for all you do. It was so wonderful. A long time, it was 2012, I started getting sick. And I had been all by myself doing this stuff for a long, long, long time. And more people were coming along, and I was trying to get more and more people to join us. And it just felt like everybody else took over, so they're taken care of. This is a good thing. It's a very good thing.
I have a
I
question.
really enjoyed your, I enjoyed your story.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I enjoyed telling it.
Carol, I have a question. How will we know to sign up for the new Zooms that you mentioned?
That's a very good question. Talk amongst yourselves and I will put a link in the sidebar, in the chat. Oh, I have to turn the recording off. Okay. I'm turning the recording off so you can talk amongst yourselves. Record.